everyone, this is Tricia and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be making this little foam pouch. This will go over the head and be worn like so. You put your phone in there. It was really easy to do. It just took a little patience to figure it out. So I want to share that with you, and if you want to see how I put it together, then keep on watching. Alright, so to make my pouch, I'm going to be using some fabric, and I've got these two pieces here. They're each a 1/4 yard of fabric. I don't need more than that. That's all you need. Where you get it from is going to depend on the price and of course the brand. I got these from Walmart, and I think I paid maybe like $4 for this one and maybe a couple of bucks for this one. This is going to be the outer fabric, and this is going to be for my lining. Of course, I don't need a separate fabric for my lining. I could use the same fabric all around, but just because I want to make it extra special, I decided to go on something that'll contrast really nicely with my chosen fabric. And I thought the sunflowers were so pretty. You know, we're going from summer to fall, and I thought that was really cute. Alright, so I also need something to hang my pouch from, and I grabbed some ribbon. So I grabbed this one. It's a pretty yellow color. And it coordinates very well with the fabric that I have here. Also, because it's cross grain, excuse me, it's nice, and the fabric is nice and thick. It's not a thin, flimsy fabric. It won't twist around as easily as like a satin fabric, or if I chose to use something thinner. Now this is a 5/8 inch. I wanted something that was a 1/2 inch. I couldn't find that was in a cross grain that would match this. So I went ahead and I went with that. And the reason that I wanted 1/2 inch is because I found these little set of swivel D-ring set. See that? It's got the little D-rings right here. And this is the swivel latch. So you pop it open to hook it onto here. And on the other end of this, it's got another little ring here, a D-ring shape here. So the ribbon will go through here. And this is only 1/2 inch. This is 5/8 inch. It's a little bit wider, but it's okay. I'm going to make it fit through there. It's no big deal. Okay, so that's what I'm going to use for that. And then I've got a little piece of velcro here that I'm going to use for the closure. I have more velcro in case I feel like, okay, maybe this is too small, but I think it's perfectly fine, the little size that it is. This is probably, yeah, the width that I cut is about a little bit more than, no, it's about 1/2 inch. And this is about 5/8 inch wide velcro, in case you're wondering what I use. Okay, so now that I've got all my supplies, I've got my sewing machine with some thread. I just put some white thread on it. Put whatever thread you need to match your fabric. I just use white thread. I'm not bothered by it, not to mention the fact that this little ribbon has like a little cute little stitching effect on the side, and it's in white, so it'll be fine. Alright, so now that I've got everything here, let's get to crafting. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and measure my phone, and of course I'm going to measure it with whatever case I always carry it in. If you have one of those little flip ones that have a little cover, and that's the way you always keep your phone, you don't take it out of that, then measure it with that on there, so that will fit into the little pouch. Okay, so I've got my phone here. The first thing I'm going to do is measure the height here, and here I'm going to do 6.5. I'm just going just a tad bit more, 6.5, and then I've got a 1/4 inch of thickness here. Let me make sure by using this. Okay, it's a little bit more than a 1/4 inch. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch measurement. 1/2 inch measurement there. Obviously a 1/2 inch measurement over here. So I'm going to go with 6.5 with 1/2 inch more makes it 7 inches. So I'm going to write down here 7 first. And then I want to give it a 1/4 inch and then a 1/4 inch for the seams. That's another 1/2 inch. So 7.5. I'm keeping track of myself. Plus I want to go ahead and just give it another inch just to make the pouch a little bit bigger in case I want to put something in there. So instead of the 7.5, I'm going to go with 8.5. So I'm going to use 8.5 inches as my height. That'll give me room for the fold over bit here and over here, and of course I'm going to have extra space because I added some inches here and there, some 1/2 inches. Okay, so now for my width I have 3.25. So let me put that down here, 3.25, so I can keep track of what I'm doing. And then 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch there. That's another inch, so that makes it 4 1/4, and then I want to add 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch for the side seams. That gives me another 1/2 inch, so that makes it 4 5/8. And just like I gave this an extra inch, I'm going to give that an extra inch. So instead of 4 5/8, I'm going to go with 5 5/8. But because it's so close to 6 inches, I'm just going to round it off to 6 inches. That's going to give me plenty of room. Not only that, but if I want to throw in a pen, or if I want to throw in some credit cards, or I want to throw some stuff in there, maybe my keys in there, you know, you never know. That's going to give me lots of room. Look at that. Here's the 6 inches right here. That's a lot of room to play with. Okay, and 8 inches over here as well. It's not like a lot where the phone's going to be like completely just flippity flopping in there. It's going to fit nice in there. Plus you can fit a couple of things, maybe even possibly some sunglasses, but you might want to add a little bit extra if you want to throw in some sunglasses in there. Okay, or just reading glasses. All right, so I've got my measurements. My width is going to be 6 inches. My height is going to be 8 1/2. That's considering seams and such. Now I want to have a little flap here that'll fold over, to just close everything. So I need to decide how big I want that. I'm going to use the same width that I'm using down here. So that's going to be 6 inches. And I want it to fold over maybe a couple of inches, plus the 1/2 inch, plus another 1/2 inch, just for safety reasons, not for safety reasons, but just for safe guarding, I guess, making sure that I make it long enough to where it flips over and I can fold it onto here. I can choose 3 inches, but then I'm going to give it a 1/4 inch for the for the seam. So I'm going to put 3 1/4 inch. You're just adding little extras when you're making something. Unless you want it to fit completely snug, then measure it exactly and just give it the extra 1/4 inch for the seams. Up here, it's going to have a seam where I sew it on one side, and it's going to have a seam where it sews onto here. Actually, I'm glad that I said that, because instead of 3 1/4, it's going to be 3 1/2. I didn't do my 1/4 inch twice. Okay, so there we go. You always have to add in that 1/4 inch. Okay, so now I've got my measurements. Now I know how to cut everything. Okay, so I'm going to take this first fabric, and whatever I do with this one, I'm going to do with this as well, because that's going to be the lining on the inside. So I want to make sure that everything has 2 pieces, one of each color. So whatever I cut from here, I'm going to cut from here. All right, so the first piece that I want to cut is the big piece here, and I need 2 of them, because obviously I need one for this side of the phone, and then I need one for this side of the phone. So I need 2 pieces that are going to be 6 inch by 8 1/2. Just fold it over enough. Let's see, I needed 6 inches. That's good. I almost want to go 6 1/2, you guys, because I feel like I want to have enough room where, like, if I sew it here, and I sew it here. It's too loosey-goosey. Let's go ahead and go with a 6 inch. Yeah, okay, I can cut 6 inches off of this fold. And then, of course, I'm going to go 8 1/2 down this way. So first, let's get that nice and flat. You could iron this, make it easier on yourself. And I'm just going to use my scissors just to cut this out, just a raw cut, using that edge to cut straight. And I want to save as much of this fabric as I can, so I'm not going to cut all the way down. I'm going to measure my 8 1/2, which is, oh my goodness, am I perfect or what? Well, not me, myself, but my cutting, because guess what? 8 1/2 is right here, and that's right where I stopped cutting with my scissors. So I'm measuring 8 1/2 there, and just to make sure that I go straight, I'm going to mark it 8 1/2 over here as well. And then the middle, just to make sure that I don't go down and then go back up, because that can happen. 8 1/2 right there. Now, a good way to also get that to be a good, nice, straight cut is to fold it. Bring it along the edge here. Make sure it's all nice and flat right there. And like that. And now that I've got it like that, And this is all aligned here on the edge, and it's nice and straight. I want to make sure I make a nice straight cut. I can remove these pins now because they're just going to be in the way now. If I fold it like this, and then I can just go in there and cut like that. Okay, so there's that piece, and there's that piece. Now I need to cut these two pieces. So I'm cutting on the fold, cutting that out. And remember, I only needed 6 inches. I got 6.5. And I think I decided the 6.5 is if I go 1/4 inch this way. And if I do 1/4 inch this way, then I've got lots of room for my phone. And I don't want too much room. So I think I am going to go and do the 6 inch. So I need to cut off 1/2 inch, mark it like that, and you could do the same thing. You could fold this over and cut on the fold, but because this is such a small little piece to fold, unless you have your iron and you're going to iron it down, then you can cut it nice and straight. But otherwise, just go ahead and do this, or get your straight edge and mark it with a tailor's pencil. And there we go. Cut off that. I can remove that pin. All right, there we go. I've got my two pieces, and like I said, I'm going to cut the same from the other fabric. So I'll put those aside. Now I need my little flap, and I only need to cut one piece at 6 inches by, the 6 inches because of the width, and then 3.5 inch of the height. So I'm going to use this same little piece that I have left over here. Measure 6 inches right here. I'm actually going to cut it a little bit bigger just to, okay. And then I'm going to need 3.5 this way. So let me fold that. At the 6 inch right here. I fold it at the 6 inch, and I'm going to go ahead and pin it. So I should have 3 inches. Good. Okay, now for over here I need 3.5. So let's measure from this. Well, it's not a very straight edge, so I'm going to go up a little bit. 3.5. That's why a rotary cutter and like a mat is always the best way to go to cut things, nice and straight. Let me trim off this. It's always nice to use a rotary cutter, and I'm going to tell you why. Because here you can do nice squared off edges. Like if I put this fold right on this nice straight edge, I can see right here that that's not nice and straight. So now I'm going to need my straight edge here, so I can align it nice and straight, and then I can cut that right there. Okay, so that makes it nice and straight. Let me go ahead and remove these pins, and I'll use the lines on my little board here. I need 3.5, which is right here, pops out right there. And there we go, like that. Trim off this. And then I need my 6 inches, which is, but it's folded in half, so 3 inches in this case. Put it right along the edge here, right along the edge, because I already know that's straight, and I already know that's straight, and I know this is straight. I just got to make this other line nice and straight. See? And I got a nice piece that's nice and square, and of course I'm going to cut from that other fabric one of these pieces as well. Alright, so I've got all of my pieces cut out of both fabrics. So now I'm going to put these two aside, and I'm going to take these two and put them right sides together, like so. Okay, so now I want to sew all around the edges here, but I'm going to leave this top part open. So 1/4 inch, quarter inch, quarter inch. I'm going to do the same with this one, but I'm going to leave a little opening right here. I need to mark it with some pins. Right here, oops, grabbed a pin with that. So I'm going to sew a quarter inch down and up to here and leave about, I don't know, 2 inches open. And then start from there, quarter inch up. Just want to make sure my fabrics are nice and straight. And then I'll go ahead and sew those. Okay, pull it up, turn it, and I'm only going to sew up to where the pin is. Pull that out, back stitch. Lock that end of that bit where I've sewn. Okay. Tighten up my little foot, it keeps coming loose. Okay, now we're going to start at the other side here. Remove that pin, don't need that. Go down, back stitch, and then continue. There we go. Keep the needle down. Turn this, put her foot down. The needle itself is down into the fabric, but the little foot, I picked it up to turn it, and then I put the foot back down. Now, if you know how to use your sewing machine, obviously those instructions are not important to you, but if you're learning to sew, that's just a little tip. Okay, so now I've gone ahead and I've sewn these pieces together. And I've created a little pouch here, as you can see right here. And then this other one, this is my lining, but my lining has a little opening at the bottom. That's so that we can turn it over, and you'll see how in a minute. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off these little triangles off the corners where I've sewn at the bottom. Just want to trim that off like that and like that. Okay. And then I'm going to stick my hand in there, and where the seams are, I want the seams in the center. So just make it so the seams are going down the center, like so. Okay, so then you're going to want to go all the way and pop it open as much as you can. One side like that. And then you're going to measure about a quarter inch from the little sewn tip down, and then you're going to pin it. Okay, and if you want, you can make a little pen or pencil marking, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I have that, and then I want to do the same thing to the other little corner over here. Go all the way, pop it open all the way to that little corner, and press it down like that. It's going to look like a little milk carton kind of a thing. And you're going to do the same thing, and you measure down about a quarter inch. Mark it with a pencil or pin, however, whatever's easier for you. And then we're going to sew like that, and we're going to sew like that over here as well. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing to this other one. A little edge, little corner there where it's sewn. Don't use the extra fabric that's coming up. Just where it starts, your little seam starts right there. You're going to measure from there down a quarter inch. And I think I got it right on the money on this one. Put that down. So across, back stitching, so you make sure you catch that. And then repeat that for the other remaining 3 corners. Okay, so now that you've sewn up these little corners, and you've sewn across them, trim off any little threads. And now we're going to trim off this little excess of fabric here. Okay, so we want to keep the lining, you want to keep this open like that, and don't turn it around yet, just leave it like that. And this is the outer fabric. We're going to turn that over, and I want you to see now I've got these little these little corners here like that. See how they are? And that's to create that little bottom, kind of a bottom edge there. Okay? So we're going to take that, and this right side, facing this right side, we're going to tuck that in all the way, so these right sides are facing each other, and we're going to open where the seam is. Just open it flat like that, and we're going to match it with this seam right here. We're going to open that also, like so, and then we'll pin it, and we'll mark over here as well. Open the seams. Oops. And then you pin all the way around just to make sure nothing moves. Make sure the fabric is pushed in all the way so it's not, you know, wrinkling upward, and then you might catch it. So pin, making sure your fabric is nice and smooth. And then also over here, and then we're going to go ahead and sew all the way around that edge. Also a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to sew all the way around, okay? At this point I could actually sew this little flap and insert it in there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Let's go ahead, and we've got this already pinned, and we're going to keep it together. I'm going to get this little flap, and I'm going to sew on the side, and then across the longer side, and then down the shorter side, and I'm going to leave one end open. I don't need to sew that, it's okay. So let's go ahead and sew that. Okay. Now that that's been sewn, of course we're going to trim off these little edges here. But I was thinking about something. I don't want it to be the continued length of this. You know, I don't want it to be that wide, because when it flips over, I don't want it folding here on the side. So I'm actually going to make it a little bit smaller. So I think I'm going to trim off that 1/4 inch, and then sew another 1/4 inch there. Let me come around the corner this way, because that way I make sure that this other seam doesn't come undone, so it's not back stitched. Okay, something you want to consider doing. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and trim off those little corners. I'm going to turn it around, and I'm actually going to, I need to go ahead and turn it over and get those little corners. You could round off if you wanted to, do a little rounded flap rather than a square one like that. Just push out those little corners. I'm going to go ahead and iron it just to make sure it's nice and flat, and we'll come to the next step. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these 2 pins, and then I'm going to fold it so that I have the 2 seams right there matching, and I know where the center is, and I'm just going to mark one of the fabrics right here in the center, and then I'm going to fold this over. Just kind of give it a little bit of a fold there. So I know the center is already marked with where I've done it with my nail, or you could put a pin. So I'm going to take this, and I want to make sure that the green matches the green here, and I'm hoping this is going to turn out good, you guys. I'm not even too sure about it. Okay, let's push that all the way in. And now that I've got them in there together, now I can pin everything, because according to me it's now sort of centered. Hopefully not just sort of, but it's centered. Okay, and then pin over here. Okay, now I can go ahead and sew everything, and it catches that little flap in there. Okay, so I'm going to go in 1/4 inch, put my needle down, and I'm going to make sure that this fabric is not, you know, catching. So I always make sure. Now once I have it where I want it, I can go ahead and put my foot down, go in a little bit, back stitch, not too much because you don't want to catch fabric over here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove the pin since I've already got it catching pretty much all that I want. Okay, make sure that this other fabric here is not catching under that foot and not getting sewn in there. Okay, and then just finish it off with a back stitch. Okay, so now that I've got all these all this edge sewn together, this is why I wanted this little opening here, so that then I can bring the inner pouch, or it's going to be the outer pouch now, bring all that through here to turn all this around. It's going to get a little tricky because we did add that little flap in there, so it gets a little bit thicker fabric. But there it is. I got it. Push out the little corners here, over here as well. I don't know why I did that, because you know what? Now we're going to pop this open like that, and then we're going to push the lining into the outer pouch. Okay, that's what's going to happen. But remember, we have this little opening here at the bottom, and I really don't want it to stay open, because once it's inside in here, if you decide to put in some change or even just one key, it could slide in through here and then get lost between the two layers. Well, not really lost, but it'll get caught in there, and then it's going to be, you know, a little bit of a hassle, you know, trying to pull it out. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that shut just as close to the edge as I can. My whole flap idea worked. Haha, yay! It worked out perfect. So I don't have to go now and try to sew this on top of here, you know. And I'm glad that I made it a little bit smaller than the actual width of the pouch here. Okay, so now we can push those little corners of the lining into the corners of the other one right here, just like that. Real nice. And we have this. Beautiful. Okay, and then the little pouch, see? The little flap will fold down like that. Isn't that cute? Okay, so I'm going to iron this just to make it all nice. And then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to put those little D-rings on the sides here. And this is why I wanted this a little bit shorter, because I'm going to steal about 1/4 inch off of this side and 1/4 inch off of this side. So then I don't want this to fold over and get like all bent like that or be like too big. So this is going to be perfect. Just it could have been a little bit smaller. This whole thing could have been a tiny tad bit smaller. Maybe instead of just taking off 1/4 inch, I could have gone another 1/4 inch, an whole inch, and that would have been good. So you want to keep that in mind. So look, but you can cut it after, you know, measure and cut the way that I did, and then after you're looking at it, then you can decide how much to cut this, and make sure you leave, you know, 1/4 inch on each side for the seam. You can cut it a little bit shorter. So all I'm saying is that I could have done this 1/2 inch shorter rather than just 1/4 inch. So what was it? I measured like that, 6 inches. So instead of 6 inches, 5.5. That would have been good. There we go. Right now it's 5 5/8, or 5 3/4. Sorry. But look at that. I'm so happy with it. So I'm going to go ahead and iron this and I'll be back. Alright, so now that I've ironed this, I actually kind of ironed this as well, these little corners kind of flat like that, and then folded them over so that I'd have that little, kind of like a little bag bottom there. Anyway, this little flap, I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, I could have used that extra 1/4 now. I was tempted to undo it and then sew a little bit more, you know, a little bit less. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that. Okay, so now they're figuring out these little rings, and I'm trying to decide if I need to use them. I'm obviously not going to use 2 of these latches, and I'm only going to need 2 of these little rings. I'm trying to decide if I even need to use this. I kind of like the idea of it because I don't have to make the loop on the whole thing that big. Then I can just use this to catch it. So I'm trying to decide if I need that, but for now, we'll put it over to the side, and we're going to go ahead and work with these 2 little rings so that I can put them on the sides here of my little pouch. I want them right here. And in order to attach them, I'm going to take a piece of ribbon. So I'm actually going to feed this through. I need a little bit of ribbon. I don't need that much. Just a little tiny bit so that I can attach it here. And that little ring can be right there. Okay, so I think I'm going to cut just a small little bit. How long is that? Let's see. It's about 1.5 inches. Okay. By the way, mine's an iPhone. It's a 13 Pro Max, in case you're wondering what phone, in case you need a kind of a thought about like my measurements, if they're going to fit with yours. That's why I was showing you how to measure it, so that you get your own measurements from your own phone. Okay, so let's put that through here. You might have a bigger phone, maybe a smaller phone. Okay. I mean, you could use the measurements from this, even if your phone is a little bit smaller, because it'll work just fine. But if it's a bigger phone, then of course you do your own measuring. Okay, so now I don't want these little raw edges, so I'm going to fold them in just a little bit like that. And just so they're not flapping everywhere, I'm going to go ahead and sew that. And you could do that by hand if you want. That way you could just do a little hand stitch just to hold it. But you guys, I'm going to go ahead and try using my sewing machine. It'll be a little hard because I made it really small, and then the foot. Is that ring going to clear the foot? Just barely. Okay. So I'm going to repeat that for the other little ring and make that. Put that ring out of the way for now. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it with a little ring facing down. And I'm going to put it flat on here, and I don't want it to move, so I'm going to put a little pin. Oh, that's not grabbing. There we go. And then I'm going to put it on here, again, slowly, and sew across. And I want to make sure this is centered, my little ring is centered on this seam, okay? So, actually, I'm not even going to pin it. Let me do this side here, bring all that underneath. And I'm not going to sew it right to the edge of the pouch here, the opening. I'm going to go down about a tiny 1/8 of an inch. It's up to you where you want to put it. I wouldn't put it too low, because then you don't want the pouch flapping over or flopping over. Okay, I'm just going to sew right above where I had already sewn the ribbon. But see, I didn't fold it and then sew it on here, because then that little ribbon could pop open on me. That's why I wanted to sew that little ribbon closed first and then sew it onto here. And just making sure that you're not catching, the other sides. And just be very careful because it's very thick now. You get all the little layers of fabric. And because it's on a seam, it's extra layers, and then the ribbon all folded up. It's extra layers. So this is what it looks like. And I'll just go up like that, once the other ribbon loops through here. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that to this other side. Okay, all right, so I have my little pouch done with the 2 little rings on each side. And then I said I was going to figure out how to do the strap next. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and add the Velcro closure to here. Get that on there now that I have it. So I have my little pieces and I pop them open. I'm going to take one of them and just put it on here where I want it. And I'll pin that just so it doesn't move on me. I'll sew that first. I'm just going to sew around the little edges. Sometimes it's a little tricky sewing it, especially on the little plastic loopies, the little hard part. It's a little hard sewing through there with a sewing machine, but you can get through there. Just be very careful. You don't want to break your needle. And then once I have that sewn on there, I'll go ahead and flip this over so that then I can see where this little piece is going to go. And I want to give it enough slack. I don't want to pull it tight like that. I want to give it enough slack so it folds over and it has a little bit of a, how do I explain it? A little top here, like I did here at the bottom. I'm going to make sure it has that. So you make sure you fold it over like that and then do this so that you know where it's going to go, okay? Okay, let's go ahead and sew that around first. Catch that with my needle. I'll remove that pin now, and I can straighten this up a little bit. Now I'm going to keep in mind that when I'm doing this, I'm going to see the stitch on the other side, on this fabric. I'm going to be able to see that little square stitch. So maybe I want to look for a little button, I don't know, something that I might want to put there to kind of camouflage that, or if you don't mind it too much, you leave it on there. But I kind of have an idea of what I want to put on there. So I'll show you in a moment. Let's go ahead and finish this off first. And what I meant, like, see, can you see that stitching right there? You know, that little back and forth that I did? You're going to see all that stitching. That doesn't look very attractive. I mean, you could put this little velcro piece on this little green fabric of the flap first, keeping in mind the distance and then the seam, and sew it in there, sew it onto this fabric first so that the seam, you know, the stitching will be on the inside. It'll end up in between the two layers rather than being on this top layer. And then this one, it won't matter because, you know, you'll do that once you get all this together. Then you can add that last piece on there. But I was just saying that if you want to do that, you could avoid this by sewing it on this little flap first, the inside lining. Okay, so now that I have it where I want it, I said I'm going to give it a little bit of slack to kind of go across like that, and then it can fold over. And it's going to fold over like about that much. So I'm going to line that with this edge, about that much. Okay, now that I know where that is, I can go ahead and slide this so I know where it's supposed to go. Okay, right about there. I'm going to pin it and do the same thing, sew it on there. It's going to be a little difficult because it's on this part of the pouch where it's a little hard to get in, but you can. And if you want to do it by hand, you can sew it by hand. You could probably use some really good fabric glue to glue it down, but I don't know if that might come off with all the opening and closing. I mean, you might not even need any kind of a closure, but a Velcro just seems like, oh no, I don't want to do that kind of sewing. It looks a little difficult. Then use, you know, hand stitch a little snap on there or a button. If you can do a little buttonhole on the flap of it, do a button or a little loop, like I said, a little elastic loop to go around, catch that button. Okay, there, that's done. Yay! So now it'll be able to latch closed. Okay, all right, so I'm figuring out how I'm going to take care of my little dilemma of hiding this. I'm going to add one of my labels to this. I'm just going to try and center it on the flap here and making sure that I'm hiding all that stitching. More or less about right there. I'll sew around it and get it on there. That'll look pretty. I was thinking, oh, a cute little sunflower button would have been nice on there. I didn't think ahead of time when I was shopping for things, and I don't have a button like that. I mean, I have other buttons, but I think I'm just going to put my label on there. Make it less complicated. Not only that, but it'll distract my mom from thinking that the button is where it opens or closes. So this is going to be for her. And so I'm just going to sew this on. I'm just going to center it as best as I can. I don't like to put pins on it because this is like a little silk type of fabric, my little labels. So I'm going to put the pin right on the part where it's going to fold, just to hold it in place for now, and then I'll fold that other side when I come around to it. It's just that it's so like silky and it's kind of slippery. I'm gonna order labels next time. I'm not going to order this. I'll spend a little bit more money and get some better quality ones. I think these little labels are great for like the inside of like outfits or things like that, where it's going to kind of be hidden, so it doesn't matter how you stitch it. But for decor on the outside, as a label, No. And I did use this label on my granddaughter's quilt, but I made a little frame with fabric for it. Okay, so now that I've got it where I want it, I can take that pin off, fold over the edge. And these labels you really just have to sew on the sides, but I don't want to leave that little loop, you know, where you can stick your finger in there. So I'm just going to sew all the way around it. And I'm barely catching that little edge. And it's not the best looking thing, so, you know, it is what it is. Oh, another thing you could do for the latch, you could also put one of these little D-rings here in the front, and then use, you know, the same way that you did, the same way that I did this one here with a little ribbon. You could put that on there and then put another one on here, but using this D-ring with a little ribbon on it. I mean, and then you could just, you know, bring it over and hook it like that. I mean, I don't know. That's an idea. Okay, so now we can work on this part. Okay, that's my label. It's not the best thing. Like I said, I'm going to order some nicer ones because look, once I try to stitch it, it just gets kind of puckered in some parts and little, the stitching is not straight. This is so slippery, this little ribbon. So I want you to think about it, that if you decide to order labels, you know, custom labels, you know, spend a little bit extra and get the good kind, because this is what's going to happen. You're going to spend a little bit of money. It's not going to be so expensive for so many. I think I paid, I don't know, $14, could have been $10, anywhere from $10 to $15 for 100. I got a roll and it has 100 of these, but I'm having more trouble with them. And if I just went ahead and I spent $20, maybe even $30 for some nice fabric ones, some like a cross, this type of fabric, cross grain type of fabric, or some cotton, something a little bit thicker, maybe embroidered type of a label. So keep that in mind. That's just my opinion as far as these little custom labels are concerned. All right, so let's figure out the strap. All right, so here we go. This is going to hook up on one side like that. So I need a strap to be on this end, and then going through this D-ring, and on the D-ring of the little latch here, okay? So it's not going to be, I'm not going to put any more ribbon through here, but rather here and here. So I want to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and put this through here, and I'm not going to cut it yet, okay? I'm just going to fold over this little edge, put it down on here, and then just sew that so we can keep that in place. Alright, so now that I've got it on there, all nice, I need to decide how long I need this to be. I'm going to put this on here, just catch it like that, and then I'm going to decide how long I want this to be. And then whatever length I want it to be, I'm going to give it a little bit extra to do that little, you know, to loop it through here, fold it, and then fold that little edge in. Okay, so I need to decide, do I want this to go around the neck? Do I want it to go around just the shoulder, like a shoulder bag, or do I want it to go crossbody? I like the idea of it to go crossbody because in the neck it might be flipping, like you bend down and it'll flip around a lot. Although that might be the best thing for my mom. If I do a crossbody, this will be longer, and I don't want her to get confused with just putting it around her neck. So I think for my mom's sake, I'm going to do it so that it just goes around the neck. So I'm going to measure. Okay, so I'm going to have it go around the neck. Now I'll just keep in mind that, you know, because I'm larger busted than her, let's move this camera a little bit. You know, it's not going to hang right here for her. It's going to hang a little bit lower. So right about right here. I think that's good. Okay, it's long enough, but it's not too long to flap around too much. She's just on her walker, so it's not going to do too much. Let me make it a little bit shorter, like about right there. I also want to make this so that it can come off just taking it over her head, because my mom might not be thinking about using this little clip very much. And like in her case, I might not even have to, didn't even have to do this. I could have just sewn this end around this other D-ring and just left that out, because I don't see her, you know, clipping it on and clipping it off, honestly. I see her just kind of putting it over her neck and just putting it on like that. It looks nice, you know? You never know, maybe I want to use it someday. I might decide, hey, you know what, let me borrow your little baggie here. What did I decide to call it? A phone pouch? Let me borrow your little pouch while I go outside for a little while and just get it on there. Now I want to make it longer. Okay, so I'm going to go about that much. Let me see if it goes over my head. Perfectly fine. And I have a bun on my head, so this goes perfectly fine. I'm going to go a little bit shorter. Okay, about right here. And then I'm going to give it a little bit extra to, you know, to loop around the D-ring and then fold that little edge in. So about 1.5 inches. Right there. Cut that off. All right, let's go back to the sewing machine. All right, so now I want to put this end on the D-ring on this other side. That's going to be permanent. That's not going to come off. The only part where it can clip off is over here. And I want to keep this. See how when I folded it, it's folded over onto this side of the ribbon. You know, it's folded over in here. This side is the smoother part. So I want to make sure that I keep the same side where I folded it over, like that. So I'm just going to make sure I smooth it around like so. Okay, so this is what I want to flip over like that. Okay, keeping that in mind and making sure my ribbon is not all twisted. Let's see, like that. It's going to go like so. Okay, so now I can go ahead and slide it in there, the end. And if I had put that frayed check, I wouldn't have all these little bits there. Okay. Fold that in, and now I can sew that. All right, so now that it's all finished, here's a little pouch all finished. You know, you could unlatch it, put it over your head if you wanted to make it a little bit, you know, shorter and it doesn't quite go around your neck, or if you wanted it to be long enough so it's cross-bodied and it's easy to just to latch it and unlatch it if you wanted to do that. Of course, you could omit that part and just put this end of the ribbon onto this other little D-ring over here, and then just, you know, just slide it over like you would a purse or anything. So there's my little flap, my little pouch, my little phone pouch. We're going to put the phone in there. See how easily it fits in there? It's got extra little room on the sides here, so that if I wanted to maybe put a pen or something, or, you know, anything else in there. Actually, I could fit a pair of glasses or sunglasses in there. Let me put my glasses in there. That fits nice. Look at that. So like my mom, who uses her reading glasses and she takes them off, she can slide them in there. She can go outside, sit out there, and if there's a little emergency, then she can get her phone and call me if she needs something, or she put on her glasses and take out her phone and look at it while she's out there, maybe make a phone call while she's enjoying the outdoors. Slide it back in, put her phone, you know, her glasses back in there, or maybe a little notepad, or if I want to go shopping, I don't want to have to carry my whole purse, or my mom, so she feels like she's carrying her own stuff. You put a little card in there, so a little bit of cash in there. It'll work just fine. Look how pretty it is. I really like the way it came out. I like that I did this little bottom like that. So I'm really happy with my project, and I hope that you liked it. So I'm going to give myself a big old thumbs up, and I hope that you too will give me a big old thumbs up. Let me take this off, and there you can look at it a little bit better, so I can turn it around. You can see what it looks like on the back. Very nice. So please leave a kind comment down below and let me know what you think of my project. Is this something that you want to try doing? You can use the same idea to make an even bigger little pouch, like a little purse, you know, for someone, or a little tote, whatever you want to call it. I'm just calling this a little pouch because it's nice and small. So there we go, everyone. All right, so if you're enjoying the content and you haven't subscribed, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe by hitting that button down below, and then also all notifications so that you get notified as soon as I upload a video. I want to thank everyone for watching my channel. Thank you for supporting it. And as always, enjoy.